Hey, yo, Fro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while we're at it, before we go any further, Happy New Year to the listeners of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. It is 11:15 at night, and I am just now getting our New Year's episode up to you. Sorry for the delay, little crazy day, but while we're doing all our pleasantries to start off the episode, don't forget, if you are one of those people who is sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest, greatest wrestling video game of all time, stop doing that every year. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation. All included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users for free. If you want to become a member of the Fro Wrestling Podcast family and you want to get your name into the shoutouts like our buddy Harold in St. Louis, then check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Fro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. We would love to have your support. And for the month of January, we're continuing our special $25 contributors. We'll co-host an episode of Going Live with me, and our $10 a month contributors, any of those people, will be put into a drawing to also co-host an episode. And as I said, welcome to this live episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget that we will always be bringing you some sort of fan voting. If you are a Patreon member, all voting for our fan voting always goes live a few days before everybody else. It's one of the perks and benefits, along with getting shout outs in the episodes that comes along with a Patreon membership. But tonight is kind of a cool night because tonight we have all the results. The results are in of your votes for the Fro Wrestling Year-End Awards, and we will announce the winner of our greatest female wrestler of all time tournament that's been going on for the last 2 months. It's finally over. The votes are in. I have not even looked at them. I have somebody pulling it up for me right now. I'm not going to look at the votes ahead of time. We're going to cover the day's news and rumors, and we will do the results at the end of the show. Please don't forget, if you've never been on the Fro Wrestling Podcast before, go to our website, frowrestling.com, and you can always check out what topics we're going to discuss in each of our episodes. So if you want to get a heads up ahead of time, and the best part about it is, if you want to come up with questions, comments, anything of the sort that you want to share with us ahead of time, you can go to the Fro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160 and give us your questions in our talk to text service. So you talk, it texts me your questions, I get those in my message box, and I can respond to those on a future episode. If you want to do something right now, if you want to be active with us while we're on the air, by all means, I see my buddy John, the sports guy, is active with us right now. How are you, John? Great to see you're on. You can go right now, if you use the Spreaker app, or if you go to frowrestling.com and you access the show through that site, there is a chat feature. I can see you in real time and respond to questions, comments, and things of that nature while we're on the air. So by all means, check that out if you get the chance. Also, I wanted to announce, for those who hadn't heard the most recent episode of the podcast, something we started recently. I have been writing, as you know, in the closing comments of every episode, I always give a shout out to the sportsjunkies101.com. It's a website that I have been writing wrestling related articles for the better part of a year now. And the best thing about that is it gave me a lot of experience and exposure to writing editorial articles and things of that nature, something I really like to do. And it got to the point where, quite frankly, I didn't have enough time to use their server and get into all those things as often as I'd like. So I'm still going to write for them. But in the meantime, in the last episode, we announced that we launched our own blog. It is on frowrestling.com, and you can go there and read our latest articles. And I just put up an article tonight all about one of the topics we're going to discuss a little bit tonight here. And I don't want to go into all the details that I go into the article. By all means, please go to frowrestling.com and check that out. I would love to have you guys give me your feedback about what you think of the article. And I'll get into what it's about a little bit later. So check that out. Like I said, if you've never been on our site, go to frowrestling.com and we'll get you all squared away. So the topics for tonight, first off, we finally know how many women are going to be in the Royal Rumble. There are going to be 30 women, just like the men's Royal Rumble. And the beautiful thing about it is there's conversation now that the Raw Women's Championship may be transitioned to Asuka ahead of the pay-per-view, allowing for Alexa Bliss to enact her rematch clause at the pay-per-view, which would take both of them out of the Royal Rumble match, making room for someone else to join the Rumble, potentially a surprise entrant or something of that nature. I like that idea, but there will be 30 women involved in the Rumble. All the major names have already declared for the Rumble, and if they haven't, it's just a matter of time. I fully expect a lot of NXT women, Ember Moon, Peyton Royce, people of that nature, as well as this week at SmackDown, Tessa Blanchard was in the back with the rest of the girls. I would not be surprised to see Tessa Blanchard make an appearance at the Royal Rumble. I think it would be a great idea, and she's a seasoned vet who doesn't really need to go to NXT. She can go right to the main roster with the last name that she's got, so we'll have to keep our eyes on that and see if they book her for the match. Ricochet is going to be available to WWE for the Rumble if they decide to make that official. He would be an amazing mystery entrant into the men's Rumble. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with that. Going to move on to the next topic, Brock Lesnar. So much conjecture about Brock Lesnar's contract this coming year. When is his deal going to be done? And it turns out that his original deal was scheduled to go and expire immediately following WrestleMania. However, what has been revealed is that Brock Lesnar has a clause in his contract that allows them to extend his contract until August based on certain incentives and whatnot that they can pay him. So I would fully expect WWE to keep him around till August if a longer term deal can't be reached. And the reason I say that is a lot of the thought process behind Brock leaving ahead of time was about him going to UFC and fighting John Jones. But now John Jones has a massive suspension that he's dealing with. Brock still has not finished his suspension for UFC because he hasn't been in the testing protocol. So it sounds to me like I would not be surprised if WWE re-signed Brock Lesnar and allowed him to continue with his big match feel matches. He doesn't have to be Universal Champion to do that. Okay, it's not one of these things where he has to have the belt. I think he has the belt right now because he is the biggest attraction as they build Roman Reigns. Problem I have with that is I don't think Roman Reigns is the guy, but they do. So that is what the deal is with him. Moving on, though, speaking of people on Raw, Enzo Amore might have a little bit of new backstage heat. For those who didn't notice, he was not at Raw this week because he was out with the flu, but apparently what I've been told is that he was actually at the arena, left the hospital, signed himself out against the wishes of the doctor, and went to the Raw taping anyways, where the Raw crew essentially sent him home. They said, you're not going to be used on the show. Go back to your hotel. Go get better. And Enzo apparently was not happy about that. Now, I appreciate his commitment to wanting to be a part of the show. I really do get that. And I think maybe with a guy who's had heat in the past, maybe he was trying to overcome that. But when you do something silly like sign yourself out of the hospital and go against doctors' wishes, when they've got all that money invested in your character, they're interested in you long term. This one match this week, obviously they did fine. You know, they put on a different match, and it worked out well. They'll still do their title match, but Enzo needs to get healthy, and he wasn't the only one. Braun Strowman sent home from tour last week because he had the flu. Several wrestlers in the back apparently feeling very ill this week, so it's bizarre. It's like first we had the whole thing in November with Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt and all that nonsense. Now we've got the flu rolling around. Just a tough time to be a WWE superstar, I guess. Speaking of tough times, The Revival come back to television 2 weeks ago. They look great. Got a decent pop, I would say, from the fans because they were thrilled to see them back in the ring. But there are no creative plans for The Revival, and I don't understand that. How could you not have a great plan in place for The Revival when they finally come back? It's not like they didn't know they were coming. We knew they were coming. We talked about it on this podcast. So if we know they're coming, how is it that their creative geniuses in WWE didn't have enough foresight to plan something for The Revival? Their tag team division is in the dumper on Raw to begin with. The Revival should have been plugged directly into the World Tag Team title picture. Instead, they weren't on this week's show. They've done nothing of substance for quite a while, and it's kind of curious. What are they going to do with this team that the rest of the world would love to see? Apparently, WWE cannot come up with something creative for them to do. It's really a shame because the two of them are just awesome in the ring. Throwback to like the Tully Blanchard, Arn Anderson days. I got my buddy John over in Hatfield telling me, he says Nia Jax was supposed to team with Enzo for the mixed tag team tournament on Facebook. He's correct. And that is in jeopardy now. That he may not be a part of that. I did find the announcement that Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss is a very bizarre team to me. I'm not surprised that Bobby Roode and Charlotte are going to team up from SmackDown. I get it. The robe connection or whatever. I think that's kind of lame to begin with, but whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Nia now. And now they're playing this angle where she's mad because Alexa's teaming with Braun Strowman. But the reality is, can you really see anybody beating Braun Strowman and Nia Jax in those matches? They really shouldn't put them together. It takes a little bit of the fun out of the tournament. Other news this week, Shane McMahon, apparently they are building to a huge match for him at WrestleMania. The theory ahead of time was that he would be doing a match one-on-one with somebody, but now there's conversation that this feud with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn may take a significantly larger amount of time than they originally anticipated, and now Shane McMahon may be headed to a tag team match against Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens at WrestleMania with a mystery tag team partner. So here's what I'm going to tell you about that. First off, it could be one of those opportunities where someone like The Rock or someone of that nature, Kurt Angle, or somebody shows up to help Shane in his battle with Owens and Zayn. I don't think that will happen. I think that's possible, but I'll tell you what I want to see happen, something that nobody wants to see, or no one has talked about happening, and that is, I want Shane's partner not to be announced at all. I want Zayn and Owens to be there, they're in the ring, Shane comes out at WrestleMania, and his tag team partner is Daniel Bryan. Tease for the first 3 or 4 months of the year that the two can't stand each other, they hate working together, and have Daniel Bryan make his return at WrestleMania in a tag team match so he doesn't have to do as much. That way you can protect him, because I know WWE's so worried about him getting another concussion, and that way you could have your high profile match and maximize Daniel Bryan being in the ring. That is what I would do if I was them. Unfortunately, I'm not a booker for WWE because I don't have soap opera writing experience. You got to have that to become a creative writer for WWE. You got to check that out sometime on their corporate website. They give the job descriptions. It's absolutely bizarre. I was reading an article this week I found fascinating. Conan was on talking about all these different elements of the business. And one of the things he talked about was his favorite star and his favorite wrestler in WWE right now, to my surprise, but not really, is Elias. He loves that Elias is able to incite anger and frustration in the crowd. He loves his whole getup, the way he sings to the crowd, the way he cuts the crowd off. He controls them. He has them in the palm of his hand. The only thing he didn't like was the whole angle they did with Jason Jordan throwing fruits and vegetables at him, because it really defeated a lot of the momentum that his character was building. Triple H, only a few weeks ago, was endorsing Elias as being so perfectly meant for the main roster. I couldn't agree more. I can't get over, and for those who follow me on Twitter, at Fro Wrestling on Twitter, you would find that I put up a picture a couple months ago ahead of one of the pay-per-views of him side by side with Macho Man Randy Savage, because I think the two are that's like the doppelganger in WWE right now. They are identical clones in their current motif. So definitely cool to hear Conan paying very close attention to one of the young and up-and-coming stars in WWE, somebody who I hope gets a significantly better push in 2018 than they did in 2017. Going to get on to former stars teasing Royal Rumble appearances, and I know a lot of people read up on these things on different outlets on the internet, and they already think they know what I'm going to talk about. Yes, I'm going to talk about one that you're sure of. The other, I don't know if you know. The one that I'm sure of is everybody has been talking about whether or not Wade Barrett is going to be at the Royal Rumble. He put up a post on Twitter with a picture of him on the beach, and his stomach, his abs weren't as tight as they were when he left WWE. And he said, "Don't worry, the abs will be back in time for the Rumble." That's very fascinating, interesting statement. Definitely teases the fans. If he were to come back, I would love it. I thought the guy, when he was leader of Nexus, was the next big thing. And then WWE fumbled that entire setup, and it never came to fruition. It's really a shame, because I think he has all the skill set, all the passion for the business, and all the desire to be world champion. For some reason, WWE did not pull the trigger on that, and I'll never to this day understand why. They had something special with the Nexus, and they went and screwed the whole thing up by pushing John Cena, quite frankly. Cena was going to be over no matter what they did. They didn't need to give him a championship or any of those types of things. They should have pushed Nexus. And now, conversation is that Wade Barrett may be headed back to WWE for the Royal Rumble. But he is not the only one who's being theorized. The other one, and if you paid attention to commentary on Raw, a lot of references to Booker T never getting in the ring again. But I have heard, there was a couple of news outlets, E-Wrestling News, Wrestling Inc., both reporting that Booker T is considering returning to the Royal Rumble as a surprise entrant, which I would love to see, because despite the fact that he's a relatively older guy, he looks great. He doesn't look his age. I think he would be a great addition to the match, and I think it would be nice for the fans to hear that music one more time and see a spinneroonie. And don't just put him out there for 2 minutes and throw him out. Let him go for a little while. I think he can. But there is clearly enough room for multiple surprises, especially in the women's division, a few in the men's division. It'll be curious to see how they book that show. There should be a lot of excitement going on. last story before we get to our big awards announcements, the one that the article that I wrote is based on is all about Kevin Nash and Vince McMahon. There were some comments that were posted on Jim Ross's podcast, the Ross Report, where he was interviewing Kevin Nash, and one of the things they spoke about was a conversation Kevin Nash had with Vince McMahon 2 years ago at WrestleMania about the state of the industry, basically, and the wrestlers that they have now. And Vince McMahon apparently telling him something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the quote in front of me, but something to the nature of, when Kevin Nash came to WWE, he was, jumping into a shark tank, or everybody was a pack of wolves or something of that nature. Like, everybody was hungry to be the world champion. Everybody wanted to be the best. And then it brought out the best in other people. And nowadays, he said something like they walk around the back waiting for someone to walk up with a sword and anoint them the next chosen one. And I get it. If you watch, and I'm not talking about just WWE, if you watch any wrestling show, these guys are concerned with a few things. One, everybody wants to get paid, and I get that. That's not a bad thing. But everybody wants to get paid. But in WWE, it's not just a wrestling company, okay? They've got WWE studios. They've got music contracts. They do movies with another Marine movie or other various projects. They have lots of philanthropic endeavors that they go out and partake in, and a lot of those things, including the marketing, the toys, the network, all these things that generate income for the wrestlers. So yeah, I hear the Young Bucks talk all the time about how many t-shirts they sell at Hot Topic. I thought it was great to hear a comment from, I believe it was also Jim Ross, who said something to the effect of, yeah, they may be selling stuff at Hot Topic, but that's one store. WWE's exposure is everywhere. You can't walk into a Walmart, a Target, two of the biggest retailers in the country, Sears, JCPenney, any of them, Macy's, without seeing WWE merchandise. It's everywhere. So go ahead and outsell everybody at Hot Topic. The WWE talents are selling stuff everywhere. They're still selling significantly more stuff, and the wrestlers are getting a kickback from that. So when I hear these people talk about, I make more money in 6 weeks than I did in 6 months in WWE, like Austin Aries a few weeks back, I respect what he's saying, but he's talking about salary and in wrestling contract, not talking about residuals and kickbacks from DVD sales and t-shirt sales and toy sales. You get the right. Sin Cara has never been pushed as a main event star, but he moved a ton of merchandise, silly plastic masks and everything else. So the reason I got on this tangent is that I feel like the wrestlers nowadays are so concerned with making money. They're so concerned with, doing these high spots. They're concerned with being on TV each week. But, if you think back to, for the people who are old enough to remember, like I am, before the Attitude Era, Ric Flair come out on an NWA wrestling show, Worldwide Wrestling on Saturday mornings, or WCW Saturday night, or something of that nature. He would come out and he would talk about whatever schlum bum he was going to wrestle against, and he would build up their match. He wouldn't insult he would insult the guy, but he wouldn't destroy his character or his ability. He would compliment people on how great a wrestler they were, but emphasize that they couldn't take his title. He would do that kind of thing so he could build the match, make his opponent sound good enough that they were worthy of facing him. And then one of the things I used to love about Ric Flair interviews is, let's say he was going into the ring to face whatever the local guy was. He's going in to face Tony Atlas in Mid-South or something of that nature. When he's done cutting his promo on Tony Atlas and their matches coming up, he would throw out a few shout-outs to people like Dusty Rhodes, the Rock and Roll Express, Tully Blanchard, Nikita Koloff, Magnum TA. He would brag about the other stars that not only they were great, but they were all wanted his championship. Aside from Finn Balor, right now in WWE, nobody seems to be claiming that they're going to take the championship. Even Braun Strowman and Kane, when they're fighting to see who's going to, take the championship from Brock Lesnar, they're not actually talking about the title most of the time. They're talking about who's going to win a match. I would love for people to think about for a moment, when Kevin Nash was there and their Attitude Era was going off, and that's the part that his interview or the comments from Vince McMahon was about. You had the Bret Harts, the Shawn Michaels, the Undertaker, Sid was still there, Razor Ramon, Diesel, all these guys who all wanted to be world champion. Even Bob Backlund wanted to be world champion. The British Bulldog wanted to be world champion. Owen Hart wanted to be world champion. Lex Luger wanted to be world champion. When you look at WCW, even with all the NWO stuff, everybody in WCW wanted to be world champion, and pretty much most of them became world champion, even if you're David Arquette. But the point is the world championships in that era and before, were always the focal point of every wrestler on the card. They all wanted to be world champion. One of the things I used to love about any of the shows, whether it's Nitro, Monday Night Raw, or even older shows, Saturday Night or All American Wrestling, is that every once in a while, some nobody who had no storyline built up whatsoever would get to challenge the world champion for no apparent reason whatsoever. It gave them a rub of being in the ring with the world champion, and it allowed for other people to see something different, something fresh, something new. Even if you knew there was no chance the world championship was going to change hands, that was okay, because you got to see just a different combination of wrestlers in the ring. WWE now, we see the same thing every week. Every week, Raw and SmackDown is almost the same show week in and week out. Until they get done with a feud, they do the same match 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, then they move on to the next feud, and then that one's there for 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. And it's almost to the point of lunacy. So it would be nice to see some of that passion about, I want to be world champion. I'm coming for your title. When I get done challenging for whatever title you're already challenging for, I'm coming for the world champion. They need to do things like that. Because what ends up happening is you garner more interest in your product when you emphasize that. You're still going to put on great matches, but you may have more matches to show instead of the same thing every week. If you had people claiming they wanted to be world champion, it gives the world champion a reason to throw out an open challenge once in a while. Not just this US and an intercontinental title thing. Those are cool, but they're not the world champion. I hate when a wrestler like Roman Reigns loses the world championship and immediately goes after the US title. It's like saying, I was champ, never mind, I'm going to be US. Right now, Jinder Mahal, I lose the WWE championship, I'm entering that United States title tournament. Well, what happened to your ambitions for the world title? What do you make the world title look like it's on the same keel as the United States championship? It's just not important enough. And that's idiotic to me. Why is Seth Rollins not throwing out how much he wants the world championship? No, he's teaming with Jason Jordan winning a tag title. That's ludicrous. So I think that when I'm reading Kevin Nash and Vince McMahon's conversation through the eyes of Kevin Nash, I think it's poignant to point out that Kevin Nash never talks about the Monday Night Wars. He never talks about how great or better or anything like that the roster was back then. It's all about just the drive and desire of the current roster, that the people are not driven to be the best enough. They want to put on a good show, but they don't always necessarily want to be the best until someone chooses them. And that's a shame, because it takes a toll on the wrestling fans, because we're missing out on great matches that potentially could happen. And more importantly, WWE does not always know who the best guy to be the next big star is. If we had people who were showing more passion in the ring, maybe somebody new would get an opportunity to showcase their talent on the show. I don't know. I could be wrong. Going to move on. This is the moment that I've been waiting for this episode. So we have our winners of our year-end awards and the winner of our greatest female wrestler of all time tournament. I'm going to do the year-end awards first. They're handing me the webpage now. I'm going to go in order, reverse order of what they showed up on the actual assessment. So I am looking. First question was, what promotion of the year? The 2017 Promotion of the Year. Are you serious? The winner of Promotion of the Year, and I can't even make this up, Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling, garnering over 50% of the vote, wins Promotion of the Year. For the Television Show of the Year, the winning show, WWE NXT, taking the crown of National Weekly Wrestling Program of the Year. In the voting for Match of the Year, the winning match, AJ Styles versus Finn Balor with 60% of the vote. The Tag Team of the Year, the Usos win Tag Team of the Year with 70% of the vote, followed by the New Day and Breezango, each with 15%. I find that fascinating. Good job, Breezango. Moving on, Female Wrestler of the Year, Women's Wrestler of the Year. The winner with 80% of the vote, Asuka. I'm okay with that. The big one here, cast your vote, Wrestler of the Year. The winner of the first ever 2017 Pro Wrestling Wrestler of the Year, Kenny Omega. Congratulations to all those individuals. What an awesome voting session. I think you guys did a great job there. I mean, you could make arguments for lots of those different things, but that is our results from that poll. Now, the last item of the evening. It's been 2 months. You guys have been diligent in casting your votes every week. We have our results. They are in. And before I get to the winner, because I haven't pulled that up, it's on a different tab yet, I just want you to know we are working currently on designing whatever the next tournament offering will be. I will announce that at a later date. We always want to give you guys something to vote about. Have your opinion out there, some kind of fantasy booking of some kind. And we will get that out to you as soon as we can. So, the final voting topic of the evening, the winner of our Female Wrestler of the Year award goes to, as I try to get this tab up here, Alundra Blaze has won the Female Wrestler of the Year, or of all time, greatest female wrestler of all time. So, congratulations to Alundra Blaze. The fascinating thing to me about this tournament has been I've had a lot of communication with Leilani Kai. She was very thankful, and I was told this week when I talked to her to send a thank you to all the Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners for supporting her in the tournament all the way to the Elite 8 round. She was very flattered by that. I feel like she doesn't always realize how important she was in the history of women's professional wrestling, and hopefully hearing from you guys, giving her that support, will hopefully be a part of that. That's all the time we have for this episode. Don't forget to check back with us next episode where we'll run down whatever the latest wrestling news and rumors are going to be. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and the sound effects that we use throughout today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen. If you're looking for your next career move or considering college university life, or you just need formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. Thank you so much for kicking off 2018 with us here at the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to check out www.sportsjunkies101.com for articles on the world of professional wrestling. Until next time, take care, everybody.